Just two men and a vision. A vision so daring, so unapologetically bold, that many believed it would never survive the system. They were wrong. The Passion of the Christ, 2004, was a cinematic earthquake, made for just $30 million and exploded past $600 million at the global box office. It spoke in Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew, languages no mainstream audience understood. Yet its message transcended every barrier. People wept. People knelt. Some turned away in horror. Others saw their faith renewed. And behind that impact was Caviezel, bleeding, trembling, and embodying the weight of divine sacrifice. But the price was steep. After the premiere, the call stopped. The doors that had once opened so eagerly. Jim Caviezel, the actor once poised for blockbusters, had become radioactive in the eyes of a nervous industry. But something else was happening. Something deeper. Caviezel, no longer driven by red carpets or golden statues, found peace in rejection. He had stepped into a role larger than himself, and it had changed him forever. And now, nearly 2 decades later, he's ready to return, because there's a part of the story the world has never truly seen. Not the blood, not the nails, not the screams, but what came after. The silence, the descent, the light that pierced the pit of death itself. This is the resurrection. And what lies ahead, dear viewer, is not just a sequel. It's a revelation.
In the stillness, not as a king, but as a son, the dust clung to his robe, the stars watched in silence, and the olive branches whispered secrets only heaven could hear. He did not ask for power, he did not beg for escape, he only said,
"Let it be your will."
And in that quiet surrender, the weight of the world rested on trembling hands.
Father, I am tired, but I will not turn away. Not from them, not from this. They do not understand, but I still love them. Even the ones who strike, even the ones who leave. If this cup cannot pass from me, then let it be. My will rise above my fear. I will carry it, all of it, for them.
He healed the broken. He fed the hungry. He walked among us. The carpenter who was more than a man. But the crowd turned, and the crown they gave him was made of thorns.
My God, why have you forsaken me? I return to you, not with fear, but with love, with wounds, and with all I was sent to carry.
They buried him, and with him every hope they held. But love is not so easily buried. 3 days of silence. 3 days where the world stood still. The grave broke open, and he walked out alive. He is not here. He is risen.
But what does resurrection truly mean? What really happened during those 3 days? Between the moment the tomb was sealed and the earth trembled in front of it. We know the story as it's often told. Jesus died, he rose, he appeared. But this is not just about what happened on earth. This is about what happened beneath it. Because resurrection isn't just a return to life. It's a conquest over death. And death is a kingdom. It is in this terrifying, rarely explored terrain where Mel Gibson's vision dares to begin. Not with a sunrise, not with an empty tomb, but with a descent into darkness. In a recent interview, Gibson stated, "To tell this story properly, we must go to the beginning of the war. We must go to the fall of the angels. We must go to hell. Yes, you read that right. This film does not begin with the stone rolling away. It begins with eternity shattering. Picture it. The heavens ablaze. The rebellion of Lucifer. An army of angels twisted into demons. The collapse of light into shadow. This isn't fantasy. This is the forgotten first chapter of the resurrection. According to the letter to the Ephesians, he descended into the lower parts of the earth. Ephesians 4:9. And in the words of the creed, repeated by millions for centuries, he descended into hell. But what does that actually mean? You see, before Christ, even the righteous could not enter heaven. Paradise was closed, locked, sealed by the weight of original sin. And so the souls of the just, Moses, David, Abraham, Ruth, Isaiah, all waited. In a realm neither heaven nor damnation. A place of shadows. The bosom of Abraham. They waited for one thing, redemption. Now imagine, after the last breath on the cross, after the spear pierced his side, the Son of God did not rest. He descended, not to be tormented, but to conquer, not to plead, but to proclaim, it is finished. In Gibson's vision, this is where the film begins, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a spiritual war, a world engulfed in ancient fire, fallen angels recoiling in terror, and at the center, a radiant figure moving through the gloom, wounds still fresh, eyes blazing with divine authority. Jesus Christ, alive in death. This imagery is not simply for spectacle. It's theological. It's foundation. It's what countless church fathers taught for centuries, that Christ, after dying, went to free the captives, to break open the gates of Sheol, to offer his hand to those who had waited in hope, and to say, come, your time of waiting is over. And in this unfolding vision, Mel Gibson doesn't stop with the resurrection. He expands the scope from the fall of Lucifer to the descent into death, to the appearances after rising, to the disbelief of Thomas, the burning hearts on the road to Emmaus, the net-breaking miracle. On the Sea of Tiberias, the ascension into the clouds, and a Pentecost when fire itself became language. But perhaps most astonishing, the martyrs. Gibson has declared, no one dies for a lie, and he intends to prove it. Because every single disciple, except one, died a brutal death. Why? Because they saw something no man could deny. They saw the resurrected Christ. And that encounter rewrote the very laws of fear. Peter crucified upside down by his own request. Andrew tied to an X-shaped cross for days, still preaching with his final breaths. James the Greater beheaded in Jerusalem, the first apostolic martyr. Thomas pierced by a lance in India, bringing the gospel to the edges of the known world. Bartholomew, flayed alive. Paul, beheaded in Rome after years in chains. They didn't die for philosophy. They didn't die for metaphor. They died because they touched the impossible. And Gibson wants us to feel what they saw. He's not alone in this vision. Alongside him, once again, is Jim Caviezel. 2 decades older, wiser, more scarred, and more ready than ever. Caviezel has spoken about the burden and the privilege of becoming Christ on screen. During the filming of the first movie, he suffered intense injuries, a dislocated shoulder, a 2-foot gash on his back, hypothermia from hanging in the cold for hours, and, most shocking of all, a literal lightning strike. He survived. He continued. He called the experience not just a role, but a conversion. And he's coming back, this time with new tools, advanced visual effects, a deeper theological foundation, and an audience that has waited 20 years for what comes next. But the deeper question is not how they will show it, It's why. Why return to this story now? Why descend into fire and shadow once more? Because the resurrection is not an ending. In's the ignition of everything. The disciples didn't emerge from that upper room with quiet gratitude. They stormed the world with holy defiance. And the church was born in flame, not comfort. This is the story Gibson wants to tell. The missing bridge between crucifixion and coronation. The war beneath the silence. And if the beginning of this film takes us to hell, then the next chapter will show us what heaven really looks like when it touches earth.
The faith-based film world has changed a lot since 2004. Back then, The Passion of the Christ shocked theaters and stunned Hollywood. But now, audiences are looking for something different. Shows like The Chosen and movies like Jesus Revolution have become favorites. They feel softer, warmer. They focus more on relationships, emotions, and quiet moments of faith. Instead of big battles or dramatic bloodshed, they offer gentle storytelling. And that's what many viewers seem to want right now. So will Mel Gibson's rough and intense style still work in 2025? Christian moviegoers today are younger. They've grown up with social media, YouTube, and streaming apps. They like deep dialogue, modern pacing, and relatable characters. And many churches that once bought entire theaters for The Passion aren't doing that anymore. Things have changed.
21 years later, what took so long? And the big thing that Mel Gibson is saying is that it took him 8 years to even write this script, that he has spent a ton of time. It's not just this simple project that's going to pick up where the last one left off. There's a lot to consider in this. And so the biggest news that he seemed to confirm this week is that this very likely will be 2 movies. So you're talking about a trio of films total, not just one movie, that he's not really able to get it all into one more film. So that is a pretty big undertaking, honestly.
Now Mel faces a stiff choice. Stick with his bold, dramatic vision or try to adapt. Because this new film is stepping into a very different world. A world that's already filled with Christian content. And the big question is, will it stand out or feel like it belongs to another time? Mel isn't just fighting to release a film. He's fighting to matter in a space that has quietly moved forward without him. Or has it?
Misty, 20 years later,
Oh yeah, 20.
you are now turning to the resurrection.
That's it. Yeah, the resurrection.
Where are we? Where are you?
I mean, it's kind of pre-production stage now, and we're definitely on it. It is my focus, and you know, it will happen. Things. It's like childbirth. You know, it's like it's been 20 years, and it's like it was an idea I had, you know, to do the next part a long time ago, but it's been a very long labor.
Why do you think it's taken all this time?
Because it's supposed to.
This film isn't just another movie. It's Mel Gibson's biggest gamble. With a budget over $75 million, a complicated cast, new technology, and heavy spiritual themes, this might be the most ambitious Christian movie ever attempted. And yet, it carries more than money. It carries pressure, hope, controversy, and maybe even redemption. Some fans believe Mel's vision still has power. Others say his time is over. But one thing's clear: if Resurrection fails, it might shut the door for films this bold ever again. Studios are watching, critics are waiting, and believers are hoping. So now, all eyes are on this final chapter. Not just of Jesus' story, but of Gibson's legacy. Will it rise, or will it fall? Are we about to witness a cinematic resurrection, or the quiet burial of a faith film legend? Kindly share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And it's called Resurrection. This time, he's not just showing suffering. He wants to show the power and mystery of rising from the dead.
Worshipping false gods.
Yeah, that's number one on the Mosaic hit list.
Yeah.
Moses goes up on the mountain, he comes back down, people are worshiping a golden calf.
Yeah.
You know, it's that.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. And for me, that's a departure from what you know, that's called apostasy.
Right.
That's a falling away from. And the very nature of apostasy means that you have to be part of it to fall away from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an inside job.
Ah. So what, do you think there's a motive behind these things?
I don't think you
You know, what do you think it is?
I don't know, but it isn't good. I think, look, I think we're looking at a world where, and this is in the next film I'm going to try and tackle this question, that there are big realms, spiritual realms.
But here's the hard part. How do you top something that already changed the world once? Can lightning really strike twice? Or is Mel taking a risk that could break the legacy he worked so hard to build? Before we look at cameras, actors, or budgets, we have to ask the bigger question. Can a film about resurrection shake people the way the crucifixion did? And what if it doesn't? That's where the story truly begins.
When Hacksaw Ridge came out and Bloodfather the same year, oh, that's a good film too. When they came out, you started doing interviews, started doing press interviews, and then you said, you know, we're going to be bringing out The Resurrection, right? Now, that was 2016. Is it coming soon?
Yeah, sooner now, because what I had to, it is such a massive undertaking that you can't do it lightly and you can't do it quickly. You have to really consider what it is that you need to show in order to be poignant. It can't be linear. You have to have many things to juxtapose against one another, even from different time periods, in order to illustrate what something means in a more full way. And I think it's going to be a real jigsaw puzzle to do. And I have two scripts, and one of them is very structured and a very strong script, and kind of more what you'd expect, and the other is like an acid trip, and because you're going into other realms and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you're in hell. You're in it's like
Is
you're watching the angels fall. It's like crazy.
Is Jim going to come back as Jesus?
Yeah, of course. Nobody else.
He's 17 years older.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know. It's going to be a Rip Van Winkle kind of thing. You know? 3 days later, look, he's got wrinkles. You can fix that stuff now.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson's new movie isn't just a sequel, it's a huge swing. Titled Resurrection of the Christ, it's planned for release later in 2025. But this time, Mel's not just filming a crucifixion. He's telling the story of what happened after the tomb was sealed. That means showing the resurrection itself. One of the most mysterious and sacred moments in all of Christianity. But here's where things get tricky. This isn't just about Jesus walking out of the tomb. The film is rumored to show moments from heaven and hell, the spiritual battle between good and evil, and scenes that go far beyond what's in the Bible. Some call it bold, others call it dangerous. Critics are already lining up. They say the timing feels off. The world is too divided. Faith is too personal. And Gibson is the wrong man to lead this story. They question whether this film is a true spiritual reflection or just a Hollywood fantasy dressed up in Bible verses.
Battle sequences and stuff with the logistical nightmare of explosions and extras and soldiers and stunts and everything else, and it's just, I don't know. You don't know how you're going to do it, you know? I think in order to really tell the story properly, you have to start with the fall of the angels, right?
Yeah.
Which is you're in another place. You're in another realm. You know, you need to go to hell. You need to go to Sheol.
Mel Gibson is out to shock the world again. And this time, none of us is prepared for it. His film The Passion of the Christ showed the final hours of Jesus in a way no one had ever seen before. It was bloody and raw. It made people cry, argue, and think. Now, after more than 2 decades, Mel is back with a sequel and the world is not sure what to expect. So many odds are stacked already. He's older, the audience is different, and the pressure is bigger than ever. Is this just another movie? Or is it Mel Gibson's final fight to keep his faith alive in a world that keeps telling him to sit down?
What I had to, it is such a massive undertaking that you can't do it lightly and you can't do it quickly. You have to really consider what it is that you need to show in order to be poignant. It can't be linear. You have to have many things to juxtapose against one another, even from different time periods, in order to illustrate what something means in a more full way. And I think it's going to be a real jigsaw puzzle to do. And I have 2 scripts, and is very structured and a very strong script.
In 2004, people walked out of theaters in silence. Some were crying, some were angry, but no one forgot what they saw. The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a film, it was an experience. It showed Jesus' final hours with brutal honesty. There was no soft music, no gentle scenes. It was violent, emotional, and deeply spiritual. And it made over $600 million at the box office, all while being told in Aramaic and Latin. That had never happened before. Mel Gibson didn't just tell a story. He made the audience feel the pain, the sacrifice, and the love of Jesus in a way that had never been done on screen. Some people said it was too much. Others said it was exactly what the world needed. But now, after 21 years, Mel wants to go even further. He's working on the sequel, and it's called Resurrection. This time, he's not just showing suffering. He wants to show the power and mystery of rising from the dead.
I denied you 3 times. How can I now look you in the eyes?
Preach all that I have commanded you. I am with you until the end of time. Death held me for a moment, but love set me free forever.
He is risen. Just as he said. I saw him. They didn't believe me, but I know. It was him. His resurrection was the beginning.
It was a very difficult thing to find and synthesize because you have to understand, firstly, why it had to happen. And to understand something like that, you have to think, like, why is mankind so important in this process? Like, why are the big railings of good and evil slugging it out for the hearts, minds, and souls of mankind? Why us? I mean, we're just a bunch of, like, fucked up things. Skinballs.
Mel's spending nearly $40 million on visual effects alone. And it's not to make explosions or monsters. It's to make sure Jesus looks real. Because in this film, the audience isn't coming for CGI. They're coming for something spiritual and sacred. The question is, can Hollywood's tools serve heaven's message? Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel are no strangers to controversy. Ever since The Passion of the Christ released in 2004, both have lived under a spotlight, one that doesn't always shine kindly. For Mel, the backlash started not just because of the film's intensity, but because of his personal actions. His past included angry outbursts, drinking issues, and public rants that led many to question if he could still be a voice for faith. Years later, some still haven't forgiven him.
The resurrection, yeah. When does that start? Has it started? Yeah, the writing, yes. I know I asked him, would you be ready to go in January? He said, yeah, maybe. So how about the end of fall? He goes, yeah, maybe. September? I said, yeah, maybe.
Jim Caviezel also faced storms. More recently, he's spoken in interviews that link him to political movements and conspiracy theories. Some of his words have raised eyebrows and created a new wave of headlines.
That is so funny because last time he did that, I said, okay, we'll be till January, and then all of a sudden you get the call, hey, you ready? No, we went in September, October. So who knows? I know he's working on that right now. He's doing a movie with Wahlberg. So he's finishing that, but he's been on this for a long, long time. And then it will be the biggest film in history. It might be 2 films. Could be 3, but I think it's 2.
The tension keeps growing. How do you show something as holy as resurrection on a movie screen? Do you keep it quiet and mysterious? Or do you make it epic and loud? And then there's the biggest pressure of all, getting the theology right.
It's a massive thing, and theologically, it's something that you have to really look at and make correlations that ring true, because it's not all written.
Do you
consult with someone, like a biblical scholar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Yeah. You know, and of course, you know, there's your own a thing that comes into it from having read the book a few times.
Mel knows he's not just telling a story. He's trying to show something millions of people deeply believe in. If he misses the mark, the backlash won't just be from critics, it'll come from believers too. So, will this film lift hearts or tear his legacy in half? Mel Gibson has always believed in doing things the hard way if it makes the story better. But this time, he's got a new kind of challenge, and it's all digital. Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, is back. But he's now 55 years old. In the new film, he needs to look like he did 20 years ago, which is a big ask.
But when you're making this resurrection movie now, you also have this obligation. There's this, you're doing a very similar thing that you were doing with The Passion of the Christ, where this is a profound story.
Yes.
When you put something like that together, how do you choose who's going to be the next Jesus?
You use him again.
Caviezel.
I know
Yeah,
it's
that's
20
what it
years
says
later.
too.
It's 20 years later, but it's,
Yeah, but it's the right guy.
yeah, but it's supposed to be 3 days later, but he got 20 years older. And I think I have to use a few techniques that they've started to get really good with
The CGI and yeah, oh, they can do amazing things now.
You can actually
Yeah.
get some of the same people.
To make it work, Mel and his team are using cutting-edge technology. They're scanning Jim's face in 3D. They're using artificial intelligence to map out every facial muscle. They're even using software called Chrono Sync to blend his current look with younger images. The goal is simple. Make it look real. No weird faces, no stiff movements, nothing that pulls people out of the story. They want people to feel like they're seeing the real Jesus, not a digital copy. But the risk is high. If the effects don't work, even in just one scene, it could ruin everything. One strange shot, one creepy smile, and people won't be talking about the message. They'll be talking about how fake it looked. Now, both Jim and Mel are stepping back into the spotlight together. But the world they're walking into is even more divided than before. Some pastors and churches support them. They say Mel and Jim are imperfect men telling a perfect story. Others step back, unsure if these two still reflect the message they're trying to share. Back in 2004, The Passion of the Christ shocked people. Not just because it was bloody or brutal, but because it felt real. You didn't just watch the crucifixion. You felt it. The pain, the weight, the sorrow. And that's what made it powerful. Yet not without resistance. But now comes the hard part. Resurrection tells a different story. This one isn't about pain. It's about hope, mystery, and spiritual wonder. And that's harder to show on screen.
It's early days, you know. You got to figure out where to do it, how to do it, when to do it. You know, it's like there's no specific timeline on the thing, but it's definitely on my mind. And, you know, moving forward, it's a bit phlegmatic at the moment, but I think it'll pick up momentum as I get a clearer picture of what it is my task should be and will be.
I'm curious why you think this is a story that so many people feel compelled to kind of tell in their own way.
I think because it influenced history and nationhood in the world. So of course it should be looked at, and many people have different takes on what they think it was. And then there's a more biblical take, and then there's somebody who, you know, off over there someplace. There's room for everybody.
There's also talk that the film might include the harrowing of hell, a moment where Jesus descends into the underworld to free lost souls. It's a powerful Catholic tradition, but not all Christians believe in it. Some might feel left out. Others might feel confused. So now the challenge is bigger than just filming. It's about balance. Can Mel tell a story that captures the miracle of resurrection without making it feel like a fantasy? Can he honor different beliefs without watering down the message?
There's a lot required because it is, I'll just tell you this, it's an acid trip when we wrote it. It is like, I've never read anything like it. And my brother and I and Randall all sort of congregated on this, so there's some good heads put together, but there's some crazy stuff.
the story properly, you have to start with the fall of the angels, right?
Yeah.
Which is you're in another place. You're in another realm. You know, you need to go to hell. You need to go to Sheol.
So you're gonna have hell, you're gonna have Satan, all that?
Whoa. Sure, you gotta, yeah.
Right.
You gotta have his origin.
How do you depict that?
This is a good question. And I think I have ideas about how to do that. And ideas about how to evoke things and emotions in people from the way you depict it and the way you shoot it. So I've been thinking about it for a long time. So it's not going to be easy, and it's going to require a lot of planning. And I'm not wholly sure I can pull it off, to tell you the truth. It's really super ambitious. But I'll take a crack at it. Because that's what you got to do, right? Walk out to the plate, right? So I think I can get it. But it's not about me. You know?
Right.
It's about something else.
If hell was the place where the story began, then what came next had to change the universe. Imagine it. A world wrapped in silence. A tomb sealed by fear, guarded by Rome, and ignored by those who once followed it. The skies, still heavy from the storm. The earth, quiet after the quake. And the body, wrapped lifeless, resting in the heart of stone. But beneath the surface, a war had already begun. And as dawn approached that third day, nothing would remain untouched. Let's not forget, this isn't just about resurrection. This is about the restoration of creation itself. Because when Christ stepped out of the grave, he wasn't just alive. He was triumphant. He had walked into death and returned with the keys to every prison. That's what this sequel is promising. Not just a retelling of the Gospels, but a revelation of the unseen. The moment when heaven collided with earth and tore the veil forever. And the first to witness that miracle, not kings, not soldiers, not scholars, but a woman. Mary Magdalene, a woman rejected by her culture. A woman once broken, now whole. A woman who followed Jesus when all others fled. It was she who stood near the cross. She who watched where they lay, and she who came in the early morning with nothing but grief in her hands and hope in her heart. And what did she find? Not a corpse, not silence, but absence. The stone was moved. The guards paralyzed with fear. The linen folded with care. The tomb empty. In that moment, confusion. In the next, a voice. Mary. One word, and the entire arc of history bent around her. She turned and saw the impossible. Not but her teacher, alive. Do not cling to me, he said, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. John 20:17. This moment, quiet, intimate, yet cosmic in scope, will be the heartbeat of the film. It's not the spectacle that transforms, it's the recognition. Because when Mary saw the risen Christ, she didn't see just victory. She saw love, living, breathing, eternal. And it didn't stop there. Scripture tells us Jesus appeared not once, but many times after the resurrection, to two travelers on the road to Emmaus, who didn't recognize him until he broke bread, to the frightened disciples behind locked doors, to Thomas who doubted until he touched the wounds. These scenes, often skimmed over in retellings, will now take center stage. The resurrected Christ was not ethereal. He ate with them, spoke with them, walked with them, and through these moments, a new understanding was born. He had not returned just to comfort. He had returned to commission, and the world would never be the same. That's what Mel Gibson wants to explore. The ignition of the early church, the transformation of terrified fishermen into unbreakable apostles, the moment where men who ran now stood and gave everything. And yet, with that transformation came tension. Even among his followers, the resurrection wasn't instantly understood. Some couldn't believe it. Some feared it. Some resisted what it meant for their lives. The film will depict that too. The struggle between faith and fear, between the old self and the new life Christ offered. Because resurrection demands response. It's not something you watch. It's something that demands everything from you. The sequel aims to mirror that spiritual shockwave, to portray what it felt like to stand on the edge of divine reality, with no roadmap, only the memory of a broken body now alive again. That's why this story must go deeper, beyond tradition, beyond comfort. This is about those fragile post-resurrection days, days of confusion, awe, and overwhelming joy. And yes, days of betrayal and doubt. Not everyone embraced the miracle. Some feared its implications. Religious authorities, already furious over the crucifixion, now faced an even greater threat, an empty tomb and rumors spreading like wildfire. They doubled down, bribed the guards, silenced the whispers, tried to crush what was already unstoppable. But truth doesn't die, and resurrection cannot be buried. Soon, the apostles began to move, not with swords, but with words. Their message wasn't political revolution. It was transformation. He is risen. He appeared to us. We saw him. We touched him. We are witnesses. That word, witness, became everything. In Greek, it's martyrs, the same root as martyr, because to witness resurrection was to die for it. The movie will not shy away from this. It will not romanticize the aftermath. It will show the cost, the sacrifice, the persecutions, the imprisonments, the executions. Because resurrection did not lead to comfort, it led to calling. And that calling was paid for in blood. Peter crucified in Rome. Paul beheaded after years in chains. Stephen stoned as Saul watched. And yet they sang, they rejoiced. Not because they were fearless, but because they had seen something greater than death. They had seen him alive. An original epic narrative film script continued. But what happens when the world refuses to believe? When truth is too radiant for eyes that have grown used to darkness? Because while the apostles carried a message of life, the world around them was preparing for war. The Sanhedrin, still reeling from the crucifixion, now faced a far greater dilemma. The tomb was empty, undeniably empty, and rumors were growing louder than swords. Guards who had seen the angel descend, who had fallen like dead men from fear, were paid to lie. Tell them his disciples stole the body while you slept. Matthew 28:13. A narrative forged not from evidence, but from fear. The leaders of Israel had crushed the prophet, yet his name would not be silenced, not even by death, especially not by death. And so began the persecution. But the fire only spread. The apostles, now emboldened by the Holy Spirit, began to move publicly. They preached in the streets, healed the sick, confronted the very men who had condemned their master. And one by one, they paid the price. But before the blood, there was wind. Before the chains, there was flame. Pentecost, that mysterious, electrifying day, 50 days after Passover, when heaven refused to stay silent. The sequel, as Gibson envisions it, will erupt into this moment with visual and emotional force. A locked upper room, fearful hearts, prayers whispered into silence, and then, suddenly, a sound, like a rushing wind. Tongues of fire descend. Voices rise in languages never learned. Men who once fled now roar like lions. Peter, the fisherman who denied Christ 3 times, now steps into the square and proclaims, "These Jesus, whom you crucified, God has raised him. God has raised him." Acts 2:32. 3,000 believe. The church is born, not in power, but in spirit. And as this newly ignited movement begins to spread, The story continues to unfold across cities, continents, and souls. The resurrection is not confined to a moment. It ripples through history. But the cost is high. Because the apostles weren't merely preaching a message, they were defining an empire. Rome was not built on grace. It was built. And any claim that someone, anyone, had defeated death, that shook the very foundations of Caesar's authority.